Alright guys, so in this session we will be talking about this topic, UNSC reforms, United Nations Security Council reforms, and we will be analyzing the US proposal. See, US have made a proposal. It's a long time discussion that you need to bring some reforms and don't be so rigid, and you need to be flexible. You need to have that capacity to adapt the changing conditions, right? The world is changing and the aspirations are changing. The economic equations are changing. So countries like India, Brazil demanding the permanent seats. Okay, so there were discussions that it cannot be that rigid and make it flexible. Even if you look at our constitution, when the times have changed, when the society is evolved, we have the provision of constitutional amendment, right? And we kept on modifying and changing based on the time and based on society progress. But that's actually not happening when it comes to UNSC. It is very rigid, and because of its rigidity itself, there are a lot of discussions and problems also, and most of the time that because of the veto power, most of the decisions won't take place also. And if you look at certain situations, the recent conflict which is going on, if you take the example of Gaza conflict, or even if you talk about Ukraine-Russia conflict, right? Not only the ongoing ones, if you look at the past, even Syria, the conflict of Syria, and then if you look at Iraq, okay, and again, if you see the Arab Spring, where UNSC have not much role, and they were clearly saying that they are irrelevant in those contexts because they have done hardly anything in those situations, in those war-like situation. And if you look at when it was created, what was the purpose of creation? It is to take care of the global peace and war-like situations and all these, right? But they have hardly anything to do because of this veto power, and countries like US will come on one side, Russia, China will come on the other side, France and US, Britain will come on the other side, and they block, you know, any decisions or any proposals. And that actually became the problem, and that led to the deadlock. Mainly the reason for deadlock is because of the decision making is not there because of this veto power itself. And there are aspiring countries like emerging economies like India, Brazil, South Africa. Especially if you talk about eastern or southern part, Brazil and India should be part of permanent members, right? So what we will do is we'll analyze the proposal. US have made a proposal that they are going to, okay, it is okay to take two countries to the permanent council, and that should be from Africa. So two African nations, they are willing to give the membership. So that's the proposal, and it is relevant. We will look at it. But before that, we will see the basic structure and other things. What is UNSC, the compositions. So that's the way we take up the discussion. So we'll take up the facts, and then we will get into the details also. So if you look at what is UNSC, the composition, the UNSC consists of 15 members, out of which 5 permanent members. Okay, and the one which I have discussed, the reform, 2 membership that they have offered for African countries, and that is to this permanent membership. Okay, now the question is, why not India? See, if you give a permanent membership to India, and US know that India is a very good friend of Russia, so in case of any such situation, India may stand with Russia, so they don't want to give it to India, though we have a very good relation with US also, but we are a very good friend of Russia. Okay, so I'll get into that, but let's understand the structure. And then 10 non-permanent members elected for 2 years. Earlier they used to ask these as prelims questions, but nowadays no chance, so there is no use. Maintaining global peace was the objective, and that's what exactly I have mentioned before. Not only the ongoing conflicts which is going on, whether it is Ukraine, Russia, or Gaza conflict, the earlier ones also, if you look at Iraq or Syria or even the Arab Spring, UNSC have hardly done anything. So that's why people may think that it actually lost its relevance because of its rigidity and because of its non-decision making power. They don't have decision making power because of veto, right? If US stand on one side, China will stand on the other side, or Russia will stand on the other side, and then Britain may align with US or France may align with US, and decision making won't happen. So that's a big problem. And the argument that US is making, or argument in favor of not bringing or not opening that permanent membership, is actually the same. 5 members itself creating problem, deadlock, and no decision making. So what if more and more members getting added? Then 3 blocks or 4 blocks will be formed and decisions will never come. A consensus will never come for sure. Okay. So the problem with decision making is actually coming out of veto power. Even one country vote against a proposal, it's over. So that's why it's actually losing its relevance. The chances are very rare that US, Russia and China, all the 3 will come together on a particular issue. Okay. So inflexibility of UNSC, that's what we have discussed. Unchanged structure. The structure has remained unchanged since its inception. It's the same. It's not adapting to the changing situations or anything. Evolving world has evolved, but UNSC have struggled to adapt to the situations, and not doing much on the global conflicts also. The lack of flexibility, I think it is the same, prevents the UNSC from addressing modern conflicts effectively, such as Ukraine, Gaza, Syria, Arab Spring, Ukraine, Russia, all these. Okay. So if you look at the importance of flexibility in global governance, when it comes to everything, anything and everything, the flexibility is important, right? The world is evolving, society is changing. So global organizations like national constitutions need mechanisms for adaptation. We have our constitution, there is amendment possible in constitution. It is not rigid, it is completely flexible. Okay. So amendments to rules such as introducing new permanent members are essential to keep institutions relevant. Otherwise, just before I told you, actually UNSC is losing its relevance. Okay. Now, when it comes to evolving with the times, current conflicts reflect the UNSC failure to evolve. The UNSC must adapt to the changing global landscape to remain effective. So, I told you why it is not effective now. Now, key conflict, if you look at, failed to address the civil war in Syria and then Iraq. US invasion led to long-standing regional instability over there. Completely, couldn't control anything. Arab Spring, political turmoil across the Arab countries. Okay. There was no UN intervention at that time also. Not effective intervention. So since 2020, many nations have called for reforms to reflect today's geopolitical realities. So India, Brazil, South Africa are looking for permanent membership and greater repression. So if you look at these countries are emerging economies, and if you look at this, they are part of BRICS also, and their economic size is also huge, the population size is also huge, and they they talk for many population also. So they have all the right to demand, right? Area wise, if you look at these 3, huge. Population wise, if you look at these 3, huge. Economy size also, if you look at these 3, huge, right? So Brazil and India at least, and South Africa also. So that again, north-south balance will be taken care. These calls are driven by the desire to democratize global decision making. So I hope that is very clear. The key aspect of the US proposal. So new permanent seat, the US has proposed adding 2 new permanent seats to UNSC, bringing the total from 5 to 7. Who are these 2 members? It should be from Africa. So African representation, these seats would go to African nations to address the severe underrepresentation of the continent. Now, veto power omission. While the proposal increases the representation, it lacks the critical element of veto power for new members. In fact, what's the point in giving veto? If existing members, they themselves cannot come to a conclusion or for a decision in any situation because of the 2 blocks, then if you are giving veto to them, then that will become a 3rd block. Either they will align with Russia or US, or they will form their own block, still the same, right? So if that might be the argument of US, but what is the point in giving a permanent membership without a veto? That is another argument. It's like it's like the president, right? And president, prime minister, if you look at, prime minister have everything, but president is the constitutional head if you look at. Or you in name you have everything, but actual power is not there. So that's what, if veto is not there, then what is the point in permanent membership or anything? So veto is the key when it comes to permanent membership. The veto power dilemma. So permanent members of UNSC possess veto power, allowing them to block any resolution they disagree with. And what's the issue with this? 2 blocks will come most of the time. Russia, China, one side, or US, France, UK may come on the other side. Or even if one country don't like any proposal, they can veto. Okay. US proposal does not extend veto power to the 2 new permanent members, though you are going to be part of permanent members. It will increase from 5 to 7, but the veto power will be maintained by whom? Existing 5 members only. Then what's the difference between non-permanent and permanent? Just that non-permanent is for 2 years, this will be for years. Impact. Without veto power, the new members will lack real influence, reducing the impact of the reform, just for namesake. And if you look at why veto power is critical, these are the arguments in support of why veto is required. Safeguarding national interest. Veto power is the most significant tool in the UNSC, as it allows countries to safeguard their national interest. So if something is coming, now if 2 countries are coming from Africa, firstly they can protect their national interest, secondly they can protect the entire Africa's interest, right? So that way it is considered very important. Otherwise you have the membership and everything, but you will be like a puppet, you cannot do anything. So just for namesake, what is the purpose of getting things? Again, India's reliance on allies. Countries like India rely on allies like Russia to veto resolutions that may undermine their interest. Kashmir issue. See, if we have permanent membership and if we have veto, certain resolutions which comes against us, why we need to get the support of others? One country vote against a proposal or any resolution, that itself was taken care, right? But now we need to rely on our friend Russia if anything comes against us. So we are expecting that Russia will always vote for us. Why that kind of dependency required? When we have that kind of population, we have that kind of economic size, right? So is it justifiable? No, actually. Protecting new members. Without veto power, new members cannot protect their interest or influence the critical decision. Same points. Now, India's quest for permanent membership. India has long advocated for permanent membership in the UNSC because of its size, because of its population, because of its economic size and everything. With a growing economy and global influence that India have, especially after becoming part of BRICS, right? India believes it deserves a place among the world's decision makers. But ultimately, the thing is that the decisions are not made because of veto power itself. But in books, if you can say, they are the ultimate decision maker, anything connected with the world. But I have given you examples of war situations, conflict situations, nothing have done. What was the objective when it was formed, right? For the global peace. What they could do in the Gaza conflict, what they have done in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, what they have done in the Iraq conflict, silently watching. America, US have done everything they want to, right? Syria, Arab Spring, these are examples that they don't have much relevance, right? So because if anyone coming with a resolution against US invasion of Iraq, then US will veto. What is the point in that? If India were granted permanent membership with veto power, it could protect its interest directly. Yeah, we discussed all this point already, right? So same only. UNSC's power blocks and the veto system. It's divided into 2 main power blocks, like Western bloc and the Eastern bloc, where US, UK and France on one side. So the point that I was talking about is this two power blocks. One side brings one proposal, the other may not accept it. Most of the cases this will happen, right? Now if the third is also coming, like Africa, these 2 countries can either align with any of this, or what they do, they will form their own bloc. But the chances of making their own bloc is very less until and unless it affects their interest. If it comes in the against the African interest or their interest, they form a bloc. Otherwise, they'll try to align with any of these based on different other dimensions, which I don't want to discuss now. These blocs frequently veto each other's resolutions, creating a deadlock situation. This deadlock prevents the UNSC from taking decisions and actions on critical issues. Now, the role of neutral powers like India. You see, India have good relation with Russia and US, and in fact all the members, even China also, we can say, okay, though some issues are there, but with all the countries we have a very good and neutral relation. So it's good to have India in the permanent membership. That's the argument 4. Strategic location. India's geographic position allows it to bridge the gap between major power blocks. Major power blocks, Western and Eastern, we have discussed. Now, if you can bring Brazil, South Africa, India, so that regional equation have been settled almost, right? North, South is settled. Now, balanced relation, India maintains good relation with almost all these countries, okay? US and the Russian bloc, both with UK, with US, France, Russia, we have good relation. Russia is our good friend also. And with the Northern bloc, we have a very good diplomatic relation. So, India can bring a good balance. A balanced decision making, including neutral powers, would enable more balanced decision making in the UN Security Council. So, incomplete reforms, no veto power for new members. So, that is a criticism. What is the reason why no veto power? Because there can be more of deadlock situations. Decision making capacity will come down. Of course, when you are looking for consensus among all, it is difficult, right? So, the US proposal aims to expand the UNSC but does not grant veto power to new members. We discussed the same point. This renders the reform superficial as new members will not have the authority to challenge or block resolutions. So, just for namesake, you are giving it. Now, so what will ultimately happen? Though, for namesake, in books, 2 names will be added, but status quo will maintain. Who will be the powerful? That first, 5 permanent members will be the most powerful and the decision makers. If one of them don't want to, it won't get it implemented. If something need to get it implemented, it is the only 5 who will get it done, not the other 2, which is going to join in case if it happens. So without veto power, the status quo will remain and things will be unchanged, and the current P5 will continue to dominate the same. So, what is the criticism? The veto power. Analysts argue that reforms without veto power for the new members are insufficient. That we discussed already. And breaking the deadlock. Real change requires breaking the current deadlock, which can only happen with the inclusion of countries like you add like neutral countries like India, Brazil, South Africa, etc. And that will be more democratic in nature. Okay. So democratization experts also highlight the need for genuine democratization within UNSC. So what are the reforms which is required? Expanding permanent membership, not the way you propose now. Make it 10, then 5 you can make it 10. Add India, Brazil, maybe South Africa, and one African country is added as South Africa, maybe one more, like that. Okay. Granting veto power, not just add them. Why you making them, adding them and making mockery of them? You give them the veto power, let them participate, right? So including neutral and emerging powers. These are the 3, this has to be there in your answer, guys, right? You can expand the membership, give them the veto, add more neutral members. Now also neutral members are there, you can say, in terms of non-permanent members with 2-year term. But do they have the decision making capacity? No. That's a difference. So for the UNSC to regain its relevance, it must undergo meaningful reforms. This would allow the UNSC to reflect current global realities and improve its decision making ability. Now, what is the conclusion? A truly reformed UNSC must be more inclusive. It should be more inclusive, flexible, and empowered to act in the interest of global peace. Don't be like a puppet, like in case of whatever happened, the examples that I have discussed. Okay, now decision making, without granting the veto power, new members cannot make any decisions, and that is irrelevant. Step forward. The US proposal is good, but it falls short of delivering the meaningful reform. The proposal is ultimately good. African nations, the long-standing injustice and the discrimination that they have faced. So you are giving membership to 2 of the African countries. That's a very good proposal, but without giving veto, there is of no use. So ultimately, what you need to conclude, you need reform, and the reform should include more members in the permanent council, and also you want to give them the veto power, and also add more neutral members. So that is what we have to write in your answer. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much. See you soon.